Optimizing individuals can have one of three different attitudes about risk. Some are risk-loving, some are risk-averse, and some are risk-neutral. You can be any one of these three types. Which type are you? Here's an easy way to test your attitude toward risk. Consider a simple bet in which I flip a coin and you win $2 if it's heads, and lose $2 if it's tails. There's a 50% chance of winning, so if you accept the bet, you're risk-loving. If you reject, you are risk-averse, and if you just don't care, you are risk-neutral. Once we reinside, we'll learn how to think about risk. In particular, we'll look at expected value, variance, and the law of large numbers. Let's start with this question: what exactly does it mean for a bet to be fair? The fairness of a bet depends on its expected value. You can think of expected value as the average payoff. A fair bet has no expected value of 0. Like the coin example, half the time you win and half the time you lose, so on average you come away with 0. In contrast, no unfair bet has no expected value below 0. A good example of an unfair bet is roulette. On average, you're going to lose money. There are also baits with expected values above 0, but you won't find those in a casino unless you own the casino. Let's use a $1 bet on roulette to look more closely at how expected value works. You pick one number out of 38 numbers on the roulette wheel. If the marble lands on your number, you win $35, and if doesn't, you lose $1. We need to determine the weighted average of all the possible outcomes by calculating its expected value. We've proven that roulette is not an unfair bet for the gambler, but that's not what makes it risky. What makes roulette risky is not what happens on average, but what might happen on any particular spin of the wheel. That risk of a bet depends on its variance. Variance is a measure of how far any one particular outcome is likely to be from the expected value. It's like measuring how far one dart is likely to deviate from the bull's eye. In a risky situation with small variance, like betting $2 on a coin toss, the odds cluster near the average. But in a risky situation with large variance, like roulette, the darts can fall much farther away. Its large variance makes roulette risky for gamblers, but curiously it turns out that is much less risky for casinos. How can that be? It's the law of large numbers. The law of large numbers says that playing a game like roulette over and over is likely to produce an average result close to the expected value. Each gambler only plays a few times, but the casino plays thousands of times, so on average they will make about 5 cents for each dollar wagered. The law of large numbers also works for insurance companies. For example, if you insure only a few ships that you have and one of them gets attacked by pirates, you could lose your shirt. But if you cover lots of ships, the law of large numbers helps you manage the risk. Because the law of large numbers, running a casino or an insurance company is not as risky. As it sounds, the law of large numbers can even work for you if you invest in the stock market. You can reduce your risk simply by buying a wider variety of stocks. This is called diversification, and it's one part of the theory of optimal investment for which James Tobin won the Nobel Prize in 1981. And this brings us to one final risky situation: adverse selection. To illustrate adverse selection, let's look at a simple example involving used cars. Some used cars are peaches and some are lemons, but you can't always tell which is which. This is a problema of asymmetric information, which means that sellers know something they buyers do not, or vice versa. In this example, asymmetric information can make it impossible to buy a good used car. Fear of getting a lemon leads buyers to reduce how much they'll pay for a used car, but lower prices lead the owners of peaches to leave the market. This effect is called adverse selection. See how adverse selection affects the market for health insurance. Let's imagine 3 risk-averse individuals seeking health coverage. One have expected care costs by year to 100, but pays $300 for insurance. The second got a terrible rash, and expect cost are $800, but she paid $1,200, and the third are cough in blood. Her expected costs are $2,000, but she pay $3,000 for insurance. The insurance company has to charge a premium that is high enough to cover its expected costs, but this causes individuals like the first one to not buy insurance. That's way more than her expected yearly costs. Without her, the insurance company needs to charge even more to cover its expected costs, but this causes the market to unravel further. The end result is that even healthy people can't get individual insurance at a reasonable price. This brings us back to the big question in microeconomics. Under what circumstances does individual optimizations lead to outcomes that are good for the group as whole? Adverse selection is one example of a situation where individual optimizations does not lead to good outcomes for the group as a whole. Of course, this doesn't mean that government-run health insurance will necessarily lead to a better outcome. But it does help to explain why economists spend so much time debating healthcare policy.